This is a guy who grew up single mom, welfare, food stamps, and the biggest disadvantage of all in New Jersey. Now Brad's up to about, I would say, what, 30 mil net equity. Hey, this is John Heyer, your friendly neighborhood tax attorney, and we are continuing to interview interesting people. And Brad is an interesting people. We got to know each other over the years. Actually, I met him at a real estate meeting. Good Lord, Brad, that would have been what?
Oh, 02, 01.
Yeah, right around then. And that was interesting. We met, we obviously got along. So we both have really bad judgment in humans. So we stopped at his place. And the idea was we were just going to stop by and say hello. But that, as I learned, is an impossibility on the hill, which is where Brad resides. Brad and Cindy are both tremendous chefs. I still remember the shrimp and grits that we had that first time there, along with the booze and the cigars. And since then, we've just gotten to know each other. Brad hosts informal networking events with real estate guys, mostly other business people. This is a guy who grew up single mom, welfare, food stamps, and the biggest disadvantage of all in New Jersey. And has since moved along. I mean, the cultural shift from Jersey to Kentucky probably bears discussion. And now Brad's up to about, I would say, what, 30 mil net equity. And I had to convince him to let me say that number because, again, it's not his way to put it out there. But I think it's a great example for people. And we're going to talk about that too, because modern youth will be, well, that's too late. We can't do that. The boomers and the Gen Xers, they screwed it all up. It's not there for us. And Brad's still doing deals today and making money in this market. And so
Still doing. Yep.
we'll let Brad Simmons in Danville, Kentucky, take it from here. His story.
I was about 17. My mother's dishwasher broke. We called an appliance company and they didn't show up for like 3 weeks. And of course, she doesn't like to do housework or wash dishes. My mom, who's 91 now and still being as ornery as ever, she said, "You need to do something about the dishwasher." So I went to the place and I said, "Can I just put the part in myself?" And I wasn't 17, I was about 15 or 16. And he gave me it said, "It's just a timer, just put the timer in, you'll figure it out." So I put it in. Mom was happy. My girlfriend, her aunt had the same dishwasher, same problem. I said, "I can do this." She handed me a $20 bill. I said, "Oh my God, if I could do 20 of these a week, I could make $400 a week," which was a lot of zeros for me as a welfare and food stamps kid, and a lot of zeros back in 1980. So that's how the whole thing started. In a couple of years, that company had been in business over 60 years. Hiram Buckman Incorporated in Belvedere, New Jersey. We put them out of business. Then a new guy bought it, and he was doing the same MO, doing the same shit that they were doing, making people wait 3-4 weeks to get service, and put them out of business in about a year and a half. It wasn't my goal to do that. I was just same day service. And then I went, "Oh, what happened to them? Did they go out of business again?" But fast forward, we just bought a piece of land on a 1031 in this town I had never even heard of, really. I'd driven through it. We do a feasibility study, and lo and behold, it's saturated about 300%, oversaturated with storage. But we really liked the location, and our feasibility study guy really loved the location. He said, "I'm bullish on this location. Don't build closer to your house. This is 45 minutes away. You just got to do it." So I looked at the competition, and it was just old, not new stuff. So I figured we could go in there with better service, better customer service, better location, storage 2.0. Anyway, we
Let
stayed
me give
alive.
you a bump on that. Let me give you a bump because I saw it. I remember going there. First of all, for bourbon fans, it's not just any old little town. It happens to be Lawrenceburg, which is where Wild Turkey and Four Roses are. On paper, the statistics were horrible. And
Yep.
a lot of people, they just stop. Oh, it's oversaturated. There's too much self-storage. If you look at just the numbers, and that's on anything, again, young people looking at the economy. Oh, boo-hoo, we can't do anything. We're helpless. Go fetal. No, the numbers said This was oversaturated. It was a terrible market to build self-storage in. Brad has eyeballs connected to a brain. But what Brad described to me was all the other self-storage. It was on back roads, it was gravel, it was rusted out chain link fences. It was run by, I don't know, maybe a little bit of some children of the corn stuff going on there. Maybe on a spreadsheet, maybe not even quite that advanced. Bottom line is, yeah, by the numbers, we had the quantity, but there was no quality. And when Brad gets into the self-storage units and you see what he's done with them, you'll see that he nailed the quality, starting with the location, but also how he does it. Sometimes the competition doesn't matter. Brad, back to you. You got to toot your horn, man. I need you to toot it.
Well, I mean, you just got to see that hole and then just pierce that hole, right? I mean, look at NASA, right? They've been doing rockets my whole life, and then they went, I'm out. Elon can do it better. So, hopefully that's what happened with us. So, my wife said, if you love me and if you value my sleep, we will have 4 years of mortgage payment reserves in cash. Please let me have that. I said, okay, no problem. Because you don't know if it's going to fill up. I don't know if I was going to get one customer. Well, we had 32 our first day, and in 5.5 months, we were stabilized at 85%. And we couldn't build another building fast enough, which we're doing right now and opening, hopefully tomorrow. Everything's done 100%. So that's just super exciting. And then we'll be building 2 more buildings there, and that'll round us out 100,000 square feet, which is, that's a dream property for us. Now, there's a lot of guys I hang with that have 50, 100. Our competitor right up the road has 650 stores like that. They're not all 100,000, but 650 stores is a lot of stores. And I probably won't get to that. My kids might or might not. They're not as hungry as I am. I'm always hungry, and I always have a tiger on my ass. My banker calls me every morning at 6 o'clock to make sure I'm awake. I was like, yes, sir. So anyway, it's really been it's been a fun career. I'm only 61. Only. I used to be the youngest kid in the room everywhere I went, forever and ever. And then all of a sudden, whoa. But we're still rolling.
And I'm just going to reemphasize, you're still hungry. You're as hungry as you were the day you started that appliance business.
Well, I agree with that. And there were several years that we were just treading water. I don't want to say treading water. We were running businesses. We were heavy in mobile home parks. We had 6 and we sold 3. That was a good year. And we sold, talk about timing, right? You can't ever time the market. Do you remember 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when the rates went up 200 basis points?
Oh, yeah.
And that was like Wednesday or Thursday. We were closing on Friday.
Nice.
And yeah. So they called up and they tried to retrade. They go, well, the rates are high, and you're gonna have to come down $1 million on the portfolio. And I said, you know what? Your deposit is hard. We've had them for 20 years. I don't give a shit. We'll keep them. And we went to closing. So that was a 5-second conversation that saved us $1 million, because some people would have broke. They would say, well, 5 million or 6 million. I don't know, so, but you just
All right.
have
So you use the 1031, a tax-free exchange, to get out of the mobile home parks and not pay tax getting out of them, to get into the self-storage that you're building, that you have built and are continuing to develop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And it was complicated because it's hard to place. Well, especially with everything was so frothy 2.5 years ago. And which is why they raised the rates and all that stuff. But I couldn't find anything to buy. So, we had $6 million to place, and it was impossible. So we just started buying bare land. I couldn't find anything, and even overpaying, because it was that crazy. Now, I guess if I was a bigger guy, I would have just gone ahead and bought something at full retail, but it's just not in my DNA. to pay retail because, well, we won't say the rest of it. That's not politically correct. But anyway, uh, I just couldn't find anything. I said, well, we'll just build. Because what am I going to buy? Old junk for a premium price? I can build brand new for less. So why would I do that? Well, it takes time though. I mean, I didn't have income from day one, but it took us a year and we were making all the payments and now we're making money and now we're expanding. So I was willing to put in a year or two to not get caught with my pants down on something that I couldn't afford with the higher rates.
So you waited. You spotted the land. You had to do that within a certain amount of time because of the tax rules.
Mhm.
So you did your homework on the land, but then you were patient. The income wasn't right away, but you had some vision. And let
Yeah.
me definitely, people are going to see this, especially when we get into your factory deal, just how below retail Brad pays. When he says he doesn't do retail, trust me, he's not kidding.
We tease about my frugality, but if you read Millionaire Next Door, it's the same thing. And I don't try to be that way. I just can't help it because we grew up, eating macaroni and cheese. So if I can make a great meal for a good price, then I'm real happy. Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, tell
Mhm.
us about growing up. Who are you from? Where are you from?
So I put family pictures on there, and there's my Aunt Jenny and me. That's me there. I'm a little bit bigger, but still as chubby. I'm not going to read all this stuff, but she was born in 1895. And if you just scan this really quick, she was 13, 13 years old when the Model T came mass production. Like it's crazy, right? The Titanic sinks. So she sees all this stuff. Hitler, she sees penicillin, she sees Pearl Harbor, atomic bomb, first atomic bomb dropped. DNA was discovered. JFK, Vietnam War, the moon landing, first Boeing 747 flight. She was 44 years old when the first jet flew, and 63 when the first commercial jet began, jet travel. So I thought that was interesting. She's the oldest of four children. Mom dies, and 9-year-old Jenny's got to quit school to take care of the children while dad works to put food on the table. So she's 4 years old, 1895. She's 4 years old when that auto car, which has rope wheels, by the way. So she gets a job at 9 years old at this laundry, the family laundrette, which is called something else back then. Probably wasn't even the same building. But anyway, she worked there until 6 months before she died. Um, she saved up $15,000 and gave it to my mother to buy our first house. Um, that's my grandma on the right. And that really changed the whole trajectory of our financial stability. So we got that house when I was 8. Dad left when I was 9. Grew up on welfare and food stamps. Quit school after 7th grade. Um, with real estate, it's really cool. If you do mental math, you're good. If you can do mental math, you got 90% of it. If you can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, that's all you need for business, really. I mean, uh, you get too far in the weeds with all the charts. What does Buffett say? Beware of geeks with spreadsheets. So I started the business at 17, actually started the real business in 17 of the appliances, and we started having surplus cash. So I started buying tobacco farms here in Kentucky, which was really good. It was good money at the time, and then the equity was amazing. Of course, we paid it
But
off real
what
fast.
what convinced you to buy tobacco farms? You're a Jersey guy, and at a young age, you start buying tobacco farms in Kentucky. What happened there?
Had no idea we knew that we were in New Jersey, had enough of the culture. The food is great. But the culture and the politics and everything, just too much, too many rats in a cage. So he said, the Carolinas, everybody's talking about, but everybody from New Jersey's moving there. Don't want to have the same problem. West Virginia sounded too scary. Tennessee sounded too far. And nobody really talked about Kentucky. There used to be a catalog, a real estate catalog. It was called Strout Realty, which later became United Farm or whatever the thing is now, United. But they would have their brokers in this little magazine. And if there were five brokers in Kentucky, they'd have maybe five listings each. And you could go through every state in the nation. Wow, Arkansas on a lake, $300 an acre. Why don't we look at some of that? So, and that's really what it came down to. In Tennessee, or I'm sorry, Kentucky was close enough. We drove 15 hours to get here. We were turned back to 1940, a little bit too hickish. So we said, yeah, let's go home. And we hit this area here, which is very beautiful. I mean, the rolling hills are just bucolic, and the shadows are long, and it's beautiful here. We like it. And we looked at a place, says, we got a tobacco farm for sale. Great, let's go. I knew what the farm was. I didn't know anything about tobacco, but we made really good money on that very first tobacco farm, well over $1 million net on that. Now, it took 20 some years, but we also had the equity in that property to borrow a quarter million. We paid $90,000 for those two farms side by side. And that's a whole new long story you don't need to know. But then the state put a highway right through the middle, which gave us road frontage, another mile of road frontage. They gave us $54,000 for that, which we had to fight for. Anyway, on and on. But then we had so much equity in there, we were able to borrow a quarter million dollars against that property. And we bought used mobile homes to fill up our mobile home parks. And then, of course, we paid that all back and then borrowed again against it. Anyway, even bare land, which is really, if we were all sitting around smoking cigars and drinking bourbon and say, what should I invest in? The last thing you should invest in is bare land, because it doesn't have any income. You want income, you want rent income, period, end of story. That will set you free. But even if you do something super stupid like I did and bought these farms, which were great at the beginning, and then tobacco got all taboo and the government pulled out, and then all we had was equity, no income. We still had equity. We could borrow against that tax free and turn that into more things. So, anyway, the bottom line is just do stuff, but try to get income. Buy a little strip. Don't buy a single family house, for God's sakes. So we'll move on from that. So this house, we managed to keep it. It was on a couple acres, paid 30,000, and the house grew up to 300,000. I know it doesn't look very nice, but it was very nice when we were there. And we've gone back several times in 30 years, hoping to find someone there and say, hey, whatever. But no one's ever there, and nothing ever changes. It just sits there like a vacant mess. But anyway, we bought the tobacco farms. That's what it looks like around here. We were making some money. I told you we borrowed, we paid 90,000. We didn't have all 90,000, but we managed to scrape it up, and with a home equity loan. Anyway, and that farm made us over $1 million. This is where we live now. Um, and we just kept buying land. And our old farm manager told us to stop buying land, take that money and put it in the farms we have: fertilizer, lime, fencing, new ponds. And that was just horrible advice. So don't take advice from someone who isn't exactly where you want to be. Now, if you want to be a farmer, then go talk to the farmers. That's great. But I really had enough sense to know that that was incorrect. We then, the overview is, we went into trailer parks, which obviously this is some of the extreme. Uh, and we had a lot of entertainment for 20 some years, because there's a lot of entertainment in parks. And but then everything has an expiration date, right? Relationships, jobs, and milk, eggs, and it was time to move on. So we sold the parks. We discussed about 1031 into some land here. That's our feasibility study guy on the right. On the left is our engineer, and the engineer. Not all surveyors are engineers, and not all engineers are surveyors. But when you get both together, that's kind of good, because then they can do the survey, they can do a geotech, which kind of just makes sure that there wasn't a gas station there. They do core samples, see where the rock is. We didn't have to do that here because it's all rock, the whole frickin' 5 acres, which is fine. We just hammered it out. And this is how we started. It was really fun. I like to make stuff. We make our own wine, we make our own food, I make my own beer. I like to build stuff. We built our own house, and building this project has been really, really a lot of fun. Um, and this oddball shape piece land, you can see the black silt fence. That's the first thing you have to do when before you dig, is put up that silt fence. That's the property line, and it's on that highway, which is a magnificent piece of It's a shitty piece of land on in a magnificent location, is what I want to say. You got Huddle
Oh
House.
yeah, that crossroads. Yeah, you got so much stuff right there. It's on a major thoroughfare. You're
Yep.
elevated, so you're actually really visible. And if memory serves, then you have like a car dealership there that has a flag the size of New Jersey,
Yeah, it
like a
is.
US flag up there that really attracts attention.
Yep, yep. And then we got Walgreens and Walmart directly across the street, a new Walmart. It's very nice. And this area is growing. So that's really a key feature if you're going to build a property, is to make sure that the county is growing. So got to go to the bank. There's our banker standing next to Cindy, the bald guy, and he's been really good to us. And this is the other board members, the lady in the
Tell
purple.
us briefly a little bit about your relationship. He loves you, and I remember meeting him with you, and it's like your family. He loves you. Tell us about that because you don't seem to go to Chase or the like. This guy's very local, really knows the market.
Yeah. So he had just had a real estate investor couple. They said, they built 10, I'm sorry, they bought 10 single family homes. And they said, our kids are in baseball. We want to coach baseball. We just don't have time for the houses anymore. So we're going to give them back. Now you can imagine what a banker thinks of that. So anyway, these people were just turdly. I mean, we've all been through foreclosures and all these things, dealing with people who just give up and they just walk away. Anyway, so I'm driving by, and this was a long time ago, 25 years ago, and I've got a little sign on the side of my Suburban. We buy houses. And he literally looked out the window, saw that, called me and said, I got 10 houses for you. If you want them, you got to pay $250 appraisal fee for each one, but some of them have equity and some of them aren't great. And we kid about it today. I should have probably gone out and looked at some of those houses, but I took them all sight unseen. And the best ones didn't turn out to be the best deals. But I helped him out. He said, I will never forget you. You helped me out. I said, okay, great. The bank didn't get a blip with the payments because the people quit, and geez, he transferred them over to us. I guess they did deed in lieu or whatever, and and we owned them, and we put people in them. We fixed them up. We sold some, that sort of thing. It's a lot of work. I said before, dear God, don't do single family homes. It's a lot of work for very little money, and I've just grown up into a little bit more zeros, add a couple more zeros. It's the same amount of work or less. And then all of a sudden now it's real money, Hey, you got enough money to buy a car or a plane or whatever you want now. So anyway, but they're really good to us. In 08, 07, 08, when it got really bad, I called our regular banker and I said to him, dude, I need a little oxygen. He said, don't even ask. Now we had probably $2 million out with this banker, and he wouldn't even get, I said, I just need like 100 grand. And he goes, don't ask. We're not lending to anyone. And I called Robbie and I said, dude, I need a little oxygen. And he says, here's what I'll do. He says, I'll do a promissory note, unsecured. You and Cindy come down Thursday morning, and is 250 enough? And I said, yes, sir. And that was the love affair. And it's been perfect. You we have, my wife and I have perfect credit history, since when I was 17. Um, we have tens of thousands of on time payments, not one, even 30 days late, not one. And he appreciates that. You know, we're solid. We've got maybe we've probably got 65 or 70% equity, 30% debt, 844 score. I'm the dream client, and he's the dream banker.
Nice. And so
Yep.
you've worked both ways. Both of you did your part to make the relationship, and that's, I think, the key word, the relationship happen. Because I remember when I was talking to him with you and we were looking at something, you said, look, you're going to pay a touch more interest with him than you would with Chase or someone, but there's a trade-off. You got a human being, you've got a relationship, honor it.
You know, it used to be like I would hear Pete say, "Oh, relationship," and it's a human being. Well, to me, that meant, well, what if I get in trouble? Can I call him up and say, "Hey, I'm going to be a little late on this payment"? And I never really realized the what a relationship was. I guess when you're 17, you just want to bed a girl. All right, I said it. But when you're 50, you understand what that relationship really means. It's getting deeper and deeper, and the love is getting deeper. So it's hard to say all these little catchphrases like, you're dealing with a human being. If you really realize what it means, of course, you don't realize it until you're 50 or 60 years old and you go to this guy over and over year after year. Well, not every year, but every couple years, we'll buy a seven-figure deal and he'll say, "Oh yeah, we'll give you all the money. Do you need a little credit line too? Do you got any capex you want to do?" Capital expenditures would be like a new road or whatever, new patios, new roof, paint the place, whatever. And every seven-figure deal I've ever done, every seven-figure deal I've ever done, and there's probably a dozen or more, a dozen, have been 100% financed. And not just with Robbie, some couple owner finance, but Robbie he's been a peach. You know. And we've been very good for the bank too. Not only did we owned a brokerage for a while. We had all the good people go there, right? The uh, the pilot who makes $500,000 a year with $500,000 Roth, he can't get 200 grand for a house because it's got 20 acres. Robbie will do it. He walks up there, shakes his hand, he says, "Done deal." So that's the relationship, the human being part of it. And we bought this factory. I don't know if it shows in here, but well, this factory, it was appraised for 3.8 million. Uh, if we sold it today, we'd probably get closer to 6 or 7, maybe 6.5 at an 8 cap. Um, it's bringing in over $1 million a year in rent. We got it for 500 grand. I said, "I need $1 million." He goes, "No problem." 3 weeks we were closed. So, those are deals that we can do regularly. If you're interested
Are
in
you gonna
building,
are you gonna tell the factory deal? Are you gonna talk about that, or do I have to prompt you?
maybe in a little while. I don't want to take up all of
Okay.
the time, but I mean, I'll be glad to talk about it. It's a
Brad,
crazy.
that's a fascinating deal. I remember the first time I walked through it. There were two things that stuck out to me that I'd like you to talk about. The price per square foot was less than what most people rent per square foot. You bought. Second, the relationship you created and the innovation of what you did with that law in Kentucky that guards you against environmental liability. And wasn't there a local congressman or state senator that they had this new law that said, listen, we want people to pick up brownfields, old factories. Nobody will do it because of the federal liability, because it passes on. Even if you didn't make the mess, once you're in the chain of title, you could be liable, including criminally liable for the
Mhm.
mess. And so people say, well, we have a solution for that. We're not going to buy it ever. And so those properties sit. And Kentucky said, and there was somebody who came up with the idea that the bill was his baby, of, well, if we hold owners harmless from the federal liability, if the state of Kentucky says we'll take that burden, maybe some of these properties that don't look so good and aren't productive will be put to productive use. So if you would just sidebar a little, tell us about that, and then tell them how much you paid per square foot. I mean, because that's just a story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can bring if we can edit this, I can stop for a second and just bring a picture up and I can show it to you. So, and I think that would be better than just words. We can do the both together. Let me kind of finish this and then we'll definitely go over that. What
Okay.
I wanted to show you here is what they call a grading plan. And if you're going to do, I don't think I can make it any bigger, but if you're going to do any building, you need to know if your site is an excess site or an infill site. So, in other words, do you have too much dirt or do you need to bring dirt in? And this one is actually turned out to be a balanced site. In other words, we can take the hill over here and throw it in the ditch over here, and then we got a level site. So it's a little bit of excavating. And I mean, you got to do your homework with excavators. They're not all the same. I mean, there's a million plumbers out there. One guy's going to charge you $80 to clean your toilet, and the other guy's going to charge you 95, but it's close. We're talking about 2.2 million versus 400,000. So, I mean, you just got to really, really vet all your vendors and just don't say, oh, the nice man, I'm sure he's honest, because they're not. They're all over the place. But anyway, what this shows, this grading plan, is it shows that how big you can put with the set line, uh, I'm sorry, the property line setbacks. And then also they discovered, well, there's a sanitary sewer line running right through. There's overhead wires, which can be moved. That's not a problem. We can move the sewer line as well, but it's not an act of Congress, but it might be 50 grand. But if I can make one building 50% larger, is that worth it? And the answer, of course, is yes. You'd make that much in a year. So anyway, I just wanted to share this if anyone was really into it. This building four, they dropped the materials November 9th. It is February 12th, 13th, whatever it is, uh, today, and we're open.
Hmm.
We'll be open today, tomorrow morning. Um, this shows the success we had because, you know, the bankers were there at, it was our grand opening 6 months in, but they were there because it happened so fast. We didn't have time to do like a grand opening. So we invite the bankers early. And she says, what was plan B? I said, hun, there is no plan B. Burn the boats. I don't care if I had to stand in the middle of the highway naked, flipping burgers to get the attention for people to come in, but that would have happened. And okay, got it. When you say that to a banker, they're like, "Holy shit, this guy's real." So they like that, you know. So, but anyway, these are actual numbers, and I don't really want to get into storage too much, but we are routinely 20 to 80% higher than our competition at this storage facility. And people walk in, they go, "Wow, this is nice." I try to dress nice. I'm an old fat guy, but I try to dress nice. And they just automatically um, trust us. So I guess if I was real smart, I would have bought 10 or 12 of these and had a third party manage it. But that's not our game. Our game is slow and steady. I'm fine. I didn't know the business at all, at all. And we learned it. Now I can train someone. We have SOPs now, and we can plug somebody in, even a third grader. It should be fine. So anyway, we have stellar uh, customers. If you're going to do any kind of building, as far as a strip mall, an apartment house, storage, anything, a big anything, Walmart, everybody does a feasibility study. So the feasibility study gave us a concept, and the concept was these are all three of our buildings. The concept was a mix of bigger units and smaller units, climate controlled and drive up, and that will give you some concept of what's going on. After you see what people want, then you get more clarity. And this gave us clarity. We knew for sure that we had way too many 10 by 20 drive ups. We had 65 or something like that. Well, they didn't fill up right away. Well, here we are a couple months later and they're all full. So this next building, we didn't do any 10 by 20 drive ups. Maybe I should have. But we have 2 more buildings to come. So the expansion is really a wonderful thing. Um, we ask our customers what they really want. And and when they want nice, the premium experience, and we can charge a premium price. Um, this shows also what a feasibility study does. It's so important to do it. All right, so let me interrupt myself. I'm not typically a feasibility spreadsheet kind of guy. I got this. I got this. Well, I've got a couple really good friends who we have this mastermind group together with, and Paul, who's been super successful. Maybe he's like me, didn't really have any losers much in his whole career. And he's a little older than me. And he says, Brad, he got that big Alabama voice, you know. He's, Brad, you got to promise me. You're going to do a feasibility study, Brad. And I said, yes, sir, Paul. That's it. So that was like Jesus talking to me. You know, I really love Paul. And we did this and it really helped. It really helped. We did a whole financial model, the unit mix. Here's what you could make. Here's what your competitors are charging. Here's what you should be charging. And here's your income. And it breaks it down into price per square foot per month, price per square foot annually. You can just see all this stuff. And we're spot on with that. That's exactly perfect, exactly right. What we're making, about $38,000 a month. And then phase 2 was the expansion. So we threw all those numbers in there, and we're not open yet, but it should be exact to the dollar. And I'm exaggerating, exact to the dollar, exact to the tens of thousands. And it could be more because, you know, you do go up, somebody moves out, you know, you're thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to really charge $120 for this? And somebody takes it, and then 6 months later they move out. Now the market's 160. So, you know, that happens all the time. So this was a presentation I took to the bank, this, and then all this jibber jabber, which is basically, if you go to the bottom line, that's all that matters. And it says that the area is growing. So this was the bank presentation that I gave them, and they loved it. And there's building 4. Well, I've never felt better. There was, we're learning all new stuff about this hormone replacement therapy. I don't mind sharing that with you. Um, I, I'm on that. My wife's on that. We're like 20 years old again. And at 60 years old, I'm 61, she's 60. We've been together for 40 years this Father's Day, 40. Um, it's amazing. And if you're on the fence about it, I was on the fence about it, and that we've done it and we really like it. And we've been doing it for a couple of years now, and it's been amazing. You know, so
Yeah, we've gotten tuned up as well. In fact, I'll be headed to Fountain Life, that Tony Robbins thing. They charge a bunch. It's down in Naples, and they just test everything known to man and a few things that I didn't think were. Nothing came close. In fact, what I've been warned about is you're going to have a lot of false positives. The testing is so thorough that they'll tell you the first time through, well, you got cancer, buddy. And they said, no, just don't take that seriously. Wait for the biopsy, calm down. Bottom line is, what better investment can you make?
yeah,
Even a, let's say, frugal guy like you will invest in health, and where the tech's going now, plus just the lifestyle choices and everything. It all adds up. It all adds up. But you invested in something else. A 40-year marriage, and she didn't chop you up into little pieces, which she does have the ability and I suspect proclivity. So I think you've done all right.
for sure, proclivity for sure.
Yeah, no, I've been around. Like when you talk about, you haven't missed a payment, and I know you wouldn't. You're honorable and you know the value of credit. But good Lord, have you ever missed even a tenth of a payment or a penny on a payment? That German lady would really, I mean, you would be in the freezer in hamburger form, maybe mixed with the venison a little bit, but it wouldn't be good.
Hey, people, I mean, bad things happen to good people, right? I mean, if I was growing faster, uh, I'd probably have some blips, but I don't need that. I mean, I got the house of my dreams, I got the wife of my dreams, family of my dreams, the lifestyle of my dreams. I'm fine. I'm driving a used car. Cindy's got a new truck, but we just don't
So it
need
sounds like
to
you're
get.
hungry but not greedy.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think, if I had known what I know now, right? I'm gonna sound like an old guy, but really, if I knew at 25 or 30 what I know now, I just didn't have the balls. I didn't have the knowledge. We didn't have the internet. We only got the internet, what, 30 years ago, maybe? So I was
Yeah.
32 years old. But if I had known what I know now, I would be way bigger or lots of more stub toes or whatever. I'm fine. It's good. We live on a nice little place and it's good.
So we took a wee break. I had mentioned the factory that Brad bought, and he was kind enough to get into his files and bring up pictures. And he's going to talk us through it. What you're going to see with Brad, aside from hunger, aside from liking to build things, aside from knowing a pace to move at, aside from having certain priorities in life, such as family, and that's why he moves at a certain pace. It gets him what he wants, but it keeps him what he really wants too. Sometimes we all get focused on something like money too much, and we screw up other things that maybe the money was meant to serve and not replace. So, a lot of commonalities here. What you're going to see with Brad is he sees opportunity where others don't. He looks and finds for oddball things. He just sees them. And then he does oddball stuff, at least by normie standards. Not, he doesn't think he's odd, maybe, but everyone else does. And just the creative process, how he looks at things and how he creates opportunity where there was none, that's always been very impressive to me. So, the story of the factory, we talked about his upbringing, we talked about briefly the tobacco farms and mobile home parks, which probably could be expanded into stories. 1031 into storage, making money where storage, you couldn't make money, but he did. And I want to get into this factory because it's just freaking gnarly. And for those of you who didn't grow up in the 80s, Google it.
Gnarly dude.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so 265,000 square feet, 23 acres. The building is about 6 acres or so. There's about 6 acres of parking lot, and there's about 12 acres of additional land. Those are the rough numbers, seminar numbers. So we have expansion potential if we want. Didn't know anything about warehouse, didn't know anything about brownfields, didn't know anything about anything. But I was scanning. We had an agent come in and say, I want you to get me information about this and that. And I'm like, oh boy, whatever. I'm interested in doing this for you, but I will appease you. And the first thing I did was open up and I see this, and I'm like, I think it said, just rough numbers, right? 250,000 square feet, 750,000, that's $3 a foot to buy it. And I'm thinking, I just paid $3.79 for Pergo. So I need to look into this. So I text the agent and say, hey, I've got a client with a 1031 of 650. Should we even waste our time? And he said, I'll meet you there at noon. So I was like, oh boy, shit's getting real now. so 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 we went out there, and of course, if you want full access to any building anywhere in the United States, I'm just joking. You just put on a sport coat, and then now you look like something. Because usually I just look like a fat old guy, like a farmer or something. Show up in a $20 truck. No, I don't have a $20 truck anymore, but uh, but I put on a sport coat and they walk in. Oh, hi, sir. How may I help you? We're security. Instead of way I used to go into places, they would want to call the police right away.
Yeah, if
So,
you go in, here's a hint, Brad. If you go in just a trench coat and nothing else, it is kind of suspicious.
but that's the way I roll, John. You don't understand.
Just you can take the boy out of Jersey.
That's right. So we go and look at this. We looked at it at noon. I put in an LOI for those of you who don't know what that means is a letter of intent is basically an engagement ring or a pre-engagement ring. It's before a purchase and sales agreement, but an LOI is really nothing. It says, I'd really like to take a look at this and I'm willing to pay $650, but I'm not obligated. So I like to think of it as an engagement ring. That was submitted at 3:00 and it was signed by the general counsel of the real estate of this corporation, who's the attorney, who's head of the real estate department. It was signed at 5:00 and we were under contract. So this was in February. I asked for 45 to 60 days and they said, no, 30 is enough. That was in February and we didn't close till late September on a 1.5-page LOI. Now, that was a ballsy move. If my kid came to me and said, hey, we're going to do this, I'd say, no, we're not. That your balls are hanging out too much there. You need to get a purchase sales agreement. Someone else could put in another offer for $10 higher and you're gone, you're out, because it's just an LOI, it's nothing. It was just little cross out, little initial, no time and date stamp. We went back and forth like that a few times and we closed on it. So went back to my banker, and what I did was I was pretty nervous about this because it's a big deal. I put together a nice little presentation, with that comb binding and everything. And he says, hey, what are you into? I said, this, and I slid it across the desk. And he opens it up. He goes, oh, wow. What do you know about warehouse? I said, it's rental. That's all it is. Really, that's all it is. He goes, okay, closes it up. I said, everything in there is important, Rob. You got to look at it. He goes, I'm sure it is. I'll get to look at it some night when I'm tired. I said, okay. He says, what do you want? I said, I want 100% financing. He says, no problem. So that was it. That was it. So as we went through the due diligence, and we'll look at a couple pictures here. We walk in and, it's pretty impressive, all this stuff. But if you look, there's heaters up in the ceiling. That's what these vents are. And no one could get the heaters on. So that gave me leverage to retrade the week before closing from $650 to $493. And what I did was I took inventory of the heaters that would not come on, which was all of them. And then I had written quotes for the same ones that were in there for what's the difference between $650 and $493? $250,000. $250,000 worth of heater replacement.
Oh,
And
no, I think you're at 140, 150 something, but
yeah,
still good
150.
enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
good enough.
Right. So thanks for catching that, because I don't want to come off sounding like but this has been 13 years ago we bought this. So we where was I with this?
Oh,
So
so
we
you got
came
them
in.
down to what, 493 because the heaters, and they didn't have
Yeah,
a problem with it. Was it pretty immediate? You're like, look, the heaters are supposed to work. They don't. Here's what it's going to cost to replace them. What do you want to do? Was it like that?
it was like that. It was like, no, everything works. It worked the day we left. It still works. We'll send somebody locally. So the guy comes locally. He goes, you got a ladder? No. You got a scissor lift? No. So I said, well, he wasn't able to do it. Oh, for God's sakes, we'll fly somebody down from Wisconsin. So they flew down the maintenance guy for this building. He says, I can turn them on. He says, you got a scissor lift? I said, no. I said, well, I'm flying back home. I'm going to have dinner with my family tonight. I said, okay, it's fine. So in 6 months, you couldn't even get these heaters on. So we're going to retrade. So it was magnificent. Anyway, so I send the new document and I don't hear anything. We're supposed to close like Wednesday. We're supposed to close on Friday. And my wife said, if you F this deal up with your cute little trick, I'm going to kill you. And I believed her. So I called the guy and I go, did you ever get my fax? Yeah, I did. I've been so busy. Yeah, hold on. What's your number again? Oh, okay. I'm sending it right now. We're all good to go. Close on Friday. Like, okay. So anyway, that was pretty good. And we closed. So now what to do? Now I can
So wait, wait,
assure
wait. What?
you this,
How much? Two questions. Did
yeah.
Robbie finance the new price or did he finance the old price?
Good question, because that's a cute little part of the story that I totally forgotten about. So so now it's like whatever, Thursday or whatever, and I call him on his cell phone and I can hear things going on. I go, where are you? He says, oh, golfing in South Carolina. I said, I'm so sorry. No. What do you need? What do you need? I said, we just retraded and we were able to get the price down, a little bit. So do we have to do a new loan doc? No. I said, well, what's going to happen with the money? He says, I'll just put it in your checking account. I said, oh, okay, that works. so, so we closed with escrows and with the retrade. And we had some money. We didn't put any money down, but we pledged some money. Anyway, we closed with $424,000 in escrow, in cash, back to us in our account that had zero before, on a 493 thing. The attorney called up and said, I just need to verify these numbers. Is this correct? I said, yeah. He says, you're paying 493, but you're closing with 424,000 in your account. I said, that's correct. He said, oh, okay. See you Friday. That's the end of that.
So to
So
be
anyway,
clear, you got 424.
yeah, that's right. I got 424 at closing. Some were escrows, which went away quickly, and the rest was reserves and the retrade.
So
So
what
that was
happened with the heaters? I got to ask. Once you did have a fork or lift truck thing, what did the heaters work? Did they not work? What was the deal?
a couple of them did, a couple of them didn't. There were a couple units. We've got one room that has 2.1 million BTUs per hour gas furnaces. And that's what all that venting is. But what they call makeup air, I'm going down the weeds. But anyway, if you were to just recirculate that air in that space like you do in your home, if you open that door, it would slam shut and, cut somebody's finger off. So you have to do what they call makeup air. And what you're doing is you're drawing 20-degree air from outside and you're heating it to 70, as opposed to what your house is. It's 68 to 70, 68 to 70, 68 to 70. Does that make sense? So you're pulling
Mhm.
in the new air. And back in the 80s, when they had this glut of massive middle management and 550 employees in this building, they didn't worry about the gas bill. But I'm worried about the gas bill because, if you turn it on, it's $15,000 a month. Everything's uh, magnitudes more than what you're used to. Our electric bill is
How did
$10,000
you
a
learn
month
all this
there.
stuff? Like, did you know about the air circulation issues before buying this, or did it occur to you, I'm getting a really big building that has really big building issues I know nothing about? Did you end up spending a ton of time on new homework or research, or did you kind of already have a sense of this stuff?
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know who to call. So I called the local electrician and he says, I did most of the wiring in there. Now this guy's just industrial electrician. He's not going to come to your house and change your break. But he said, I did most of that. I said, well, come on over. So he comes over, he brings his dog, drives his pickup truck right inside. He said, I've done all the wiring in here. He says, I can show you what everything is. If you need it, when you need it, just give me a call. And my son, who's 30 years younger, he knows everything too, because he grew up in this building. He was 8 years old helping me stuff. So I called the right guy. That was first. Then I said, how do we find out this HVAC? He says, well, call this other guy. And then so, and you meet with these guys for an hour or an hour and a half, and they sure tell you a lot of stuff. So I just learned stuff.
I
So it's
remember
like going.
what did you learn from the guard lady? Wasn't there a lady who'd worked there as a security guard forever and a day?
She still does.
What did you learn from her?
Oh, Rosie. So we're walking around and I said, no, I'm just from the real estate. I'm just from the real estate. And people say that to me, and I just think it's so odd. So I started saying it, and they go, "Oh," and that's it. So, well, 3 or 4 trips into this, she said, "You're going to buy my building, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, probably." She says, "I'm an old woman. She says, I'm not going to be able to find a job anywhere else. You're not going to get rid of me, are you?" I said, "No, Rosie, you'll always have a job here." She knows where all the dead bodies are buried. I can assure you, we need her all the time. She knows where every light switch is. You walk into that building, 6 acres. How do you turn the lights on? There's not a light switch as you walk in the door on the right-hand side, so um, everything has to be done with contact switches and breaker boxes and things. So it's very interesting. It didn't look like this when we got it. So I was talking to my HVAC guy, who was a plant manager at a big plant like this in another town. And he says, first thing you need is a floor sweeper. I said, oh, you betcha. What's a floor sweeper? so, so he said, I actually got one. He said, I'll sell it to you for $3,500. Okay, great. So he gave us a propane fired up. It's like a Zamboni, and it cleans the floors. So we didn't wash those floors. We just did floor scrubber. And literally
So,
had 3 inches of bird. So
so how much did you pay per square foot? With the price reduction, what did that come out to?
$1.86.
Right. And so a lot of people nowadays, they pay more than that in rent per square foot per month, depending on what you're renting and
Uh,
where.
yeah, yeah. Not here, maybe. Yeah. Oh, definitely more than that per year for sure. Like, yeah, way more than
And
that
that's
per
what
year. But yeah,
that's what you
and yeah,
bought for.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Well, I just want
So,
people to see the
but we,
deal and what happened.
yeah, there was a skylight busted out. There's a lot of birds. You go into Lowe's or Sam's Club and you'll see birds. Well, there were a lot of birds in this one because nobody was chasing the birds out. It sat empty for 10 years. And with the taxes, the electric, and the gas alone, oh, I'm sorry, and 3 security guards around the clock, it was costing them $450 a year plus insurance.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, uh, we were, we had, my kids call it maniacal urgency. What, Dad, what is with the maniacal urgency? And the maniacal urgency is, I got a mortgage to pay now, and we got to get this sucker filled up. We went through $250,000 like that. Just, excuse me. The trees were growing up too close to the building. There was bird poop in here. There was a couple doors and windows broken. Replace that. Just little stuff. But all of a sudden it was like 250. Blink, it's gone. Wow, where'd that go? But at least it started to look like this, and we were able to get a tenant in there. This is uh, an oven that was built for an auto manufacturer. And it's like a dip tank, where they would, um, I can't remember the name, like electrolysis or whatever, to put like galvanized on underneath so it doesn't rot out and that sort of thing, and then come up, and then a spray booth to spray chemicals or paint or whatever the hell, I don't know. But it's all stainless steel. And they needed to have a place big enough to build this thing. It was like 600 feet long, but they could build it in our building in 2 pieces instead of 9 or something like that. Whatever. So that really helped out. So you can kind of, just the scale of it is pretty fun. Don't be intimidated by it, but do understand that each one of those lights there in this room, they only cost about $1 a month to run. I'm sorry, $1 a day, $1 a day to run. But there's 500 in that room. So, so that's $15,000. So you got to get rid of those. And then we put LEDs up and everything. And there's electrical incentives, and I don't think it's federal. It might be, I don't know. And it might just be electric company to electric company. But if you changed these metal halides out to LED, they would pay you $50 for each LED. Well, the LEDs were only costing us like $80. So we bought all new LED, hired our maintenance guy to get up on the scissor lift, which we own now, and delete all these and put in a 10th of these in LED, and our electric bill didn't go down. But that was the jokey part of it. But
Yeah.
we did
So what was the new electric bill as a percent of the old one?
Well, it's gone up 12 or 15% out of whack a few times. So it's about the same. We just keep being more efficient, but the electric bill keeps going up and up. So
Oh, I mean, compared to the old electric bill, like the LEDs were a lot cheaper per day, right? These were, you said, $1 each a day.
right. Yeah.
So to get the
Well,
same amount of lighting out of LEDs, were you still paying the same total?
the answer is we had these off all the time, and the other ones stay on all the time. But the electric
Okay, so
bill
same.
didn't go down, but the electric cost went way up. Industrial electric is really cheap, but it's the demand charge. So, as an example, we're really getting in the weeds here, but as an example, if you and I walked into this room and turned on every machine and every light and every heater, and it was X amount of kilowatt hours or kilovolts or whatever the hell it is, I don't even understand it all. But if you use that much energy for 5 minutes and then we shut everything off and we left, we would be charged for that 5 minutes and then this much for demand charge. What we're doing is, you and me, we are demanding from the electric company to have enough power delivered there when we need it. So even though we didn't use 100 million tons, they were billing us for 100 million tons because we demand to have that at any given time. So it makes perfect sense if you understand it after a while, but it sucks because, our electric bill might be, $2,000, but our demand charge might be $8,000. So we're paying 10 grand a month. Yeah. So no matter how efficient you get it, the demand charge will just stick it, where the sun don't shine. So, but
You
that's
want to
easily
show?
fixed with,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, it's easily fixed with solar, and that's a whole nother thing. This here in the front, this is office, and this is office, and I could never do anything with it. Nothing. The best we ever did was $800 a month for a little corner here. We had a little gift shop, and it's just awful. And a buddy of mine who's got like 30 of these buildings this size, he says, I would just bulldoze it, really. He said, it's just a liability. You have to pay for heat, electric, insurance, just bulldoze it and make it a parking lot. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm too frugal to waste. So we were through a lot of pain for a lot of years until we had a windstorm. And if you look closely here, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this here?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's Cindy standing right there. You see the
Oh
shadow?
wow. Yeah.
So that just gives you a scale of this. This is like 30,000 square feet. So the roof blows off. It looks like this the next morning. It looks like this up top. The rubber roof catches just a little pocket. It could be 6 inches, and the air gets under it, and now it's a big sail. Rips everything off, it just rips everything to pieces. And the guy says, I can get you a new roof in 4 days. I said, fantastic. Do it. In the meantime, in the 4 days, we had a half an inch of rain, and it ruined everything. This was 100 offices. So it ruined the suspended ceiling, those I hate those things, the tiles, those 2 by 4 foot tiles. It ruined the carpet, the paneling, the everything just got destroyed. But we were covered. So we had this mess. We had this mess. I called in a guy and I said, it's kind of like a Serve Pro, but Serve Pro is really expensive. So he called another guy. He says, look, I do this all the time. Let me come out and just educate you. He says, I don't care if you hire me or not, but at least you'll understand. You probably have asbestos. You probably have lead. You probably have some things that are not really that big of a deal, but they sound scary and we're not going to whack you. All right, take my money. So he comes out. He says, how fast do you want this done? I said, I want it done like, I don't know, 30 days. Can you do it? I was joking. He said, I'll have 38 guys here Monday morning. 38 guys came. And I said, how much is that going to cost? He said, I don't know, probably 300 grand. I said, all right, do it. Because I knew that we had to do it. We had to. And this was, men's and ladies' bathroom. I mean, it was amazing. I went out there every day, and it was an education, and it was entertainment. And in 30 days, and that's a little seminar, but in 30, because we had to pave the parking lot and stuff. But in 30 days, 60 days, we looked like that, and we were open. And that's what it looks like on the inside. So it was a little bit of work. We had to spray foam the ceiling. That was 200 grand. We had to put in HVAC, dehumidification. We did everything, sealed the floors. And then this is called the conversion. So if you, like the typical is an old Sears building or an old Kmart building, that's called a conversion. You just bomb it out and then put in storage. And that's been doing great for us. This was just a couple months down the road and we were open. Yeah, we had a big open house, chamber. The mayor came. It was a big deal. Anyway, so
Did insurance help out at all with that?
Good question. Someone told me a long time ago. I said, what am I going to do with that office? They said, I'd convert it to storage. God, it was so expensive. I thought, I just can't do that. I mean, we have to gut it out. Insurance paid for everything. Insurance paid for the gut out. They paid 100%. So we basically got this all for free.
Oh my.
Now it was a little work. And no, I didn't get paid. A lot of people are like, oh, well, you got to get a salary for that. Why the hell would you want a salary? You taught me that a long time ago. Don't take a salary and pay all those taxes. So, yeah, I was just out there every day. And so, yeah, insurance paid everything. It was about $1.5 million. They call it a Category 3 loss, $1.5 million. But that gutted it out, built it out, everything, signage, everything, 100%. Didn't cost us a dime. So
nice.
But the real money is in the back here. But this is what the offices all used to look like. Pretty crazy. And we had a crazy tenant that didn't work out. So we got to vet these tenants. You want to have the automotive builders, and you want to have real AAA credit people in there. You want to have an Apple. You don't want to have, Brad's Garage in there, so, but it's been good. Many of you who are on this podcast know who Dyke Spotiford is, and he's really is very instrumental to all my success. And I think a lot of guys would say that. Thousands of guys would say that.
Oh yeah.
But
That's for those who don't know, it's Dyke Spotiford, Dyches, Bodiford, Boddiford. We used to teach classes together before he passed on taxes and asset protection, but he also taught a lot on just business and real estate and mobile home parks, and is a real polymath, that man. He's a great man. I miss him.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I said to him, I said, "Hey, I'm going to buy this." He goes, "Oh, I wouldn't do that." He says, "You would never catch me doing it. You can do it if you want, but." I said, "What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of the zeros or whatever?" He says, "I just got my little houses and I'm fine." And then he is. And he made an incredible family who I love dearly. But he didn't want anything to do with it. So I sent him a P&L and I said, "Hey, Dykes, remember that thing?" Well, here we are like a year later. I said, "It's a 94% cap rate. 94% cap rate." He's like, "I'm not impressed. Tell me when it hits 100." So,
Yeah, that
typical
sounds like that.
dry.
That sounds like Dykes.
Now here it's a couple years later, and now it's we're bringing in over 2 million. I'm sorry, over $1 million a year in rent on that building. So
And you
whatever
paid how
that is,
much?
493.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay, good enough.
So tell me about, unless I'm interrupting the story, because I don't know how many more slides and how much more story you got. Tell
And
me
that was
about talking to Kentucky and the environmental issue and reaching out to those guys.
what I found is that I'm here from the government. I'm here to help or whatever. It's in some states that means bend over, and in other states it's they really want to help. Now, it sounds like a very liberal program, but it's really not. Think about it. The gas station on the corner down the road has a leak. The people can't do anything. They're going to get fined out the ass. They go bankrupt. Now now the bank or the state or somebody's got this problem. So who gets to clean it up? Who gets to this? Who gets to that? Like whatever. So now you have all this blighted property, and that is the Brownfields program. Now, everyone's heard of Superfund sites. That's kind of like a different level. These are just brownfields, and basically, brownfields does not mean environmental issues necessarily. It can also mean underperforming. The perfect example would be, excuse me, I'm drinking beer. No, I'm not. I'm only kidding. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. Um, the perfect example would be Main Street. So you got all the cute little shops, and then you got this one stinker in the middle, and it's 3 stories, and it's just sitting there. That could also be classified as brownfields. So somebody bought it, and they started messing around. They found lead, they found asbestos, and they're like, "Okay, I'm out." So it just sits there for decades. We all have those in all of our towns somewhere, right? I mean, you're not going to have that maybe in Manhattan, but you're definitely going to have it all over. And so if you want to think of it back to the uh, gas station, you could call it the gas station bill. All right, what are the rules for the gas station bill for our state? And it's going to be blighted properties, which this one is. They had an environmental issue that this. So there's the PRP, the potentially responsible party, which is the company who was manufacturing in this plant. And what it was poor housekeeping. They were moving a chemical from the truck to their tank so they could wash parts. And it's called trichloroethylene or something. I don't know, whatever it's called. And they're being sloppy with it instead of making sure that you're not dripping, right? So then they have this little puddle of this trike. It gets into the ground, and then the guys come out and they go, "Oh, this is a problem." So what the state did was put in testing wells. I'm giving you a lot of information here. This is like a whole nother seminar, but I just want to share with you my experience so that maybe if you ever come across it, you'll think, "Oh, I remember that guy." So they put in test wells. And if we look here, this was the problem area here, right here, what they call the hot spot. In fact, this was really the hot spot here, but there's test wells all around here. So they bore test wells, and the PRP has to pay for that, the manufacturing company, and the state monitors it. And the state makes the PRP pay forever. I mean, they're probably still paying on this property. And we have companies come out, environmental companies come out and test and do things. So the state says there is this enzyme that we think will kill this trike. It'll eat it. It'll eat it, and we'll do everything. But we got to get the enzyme in the ground, into the test wells, and out to seep. So the engineers come up with this idea that we're going to put this under pressure on the test well, right? Think like a garden hose. And we're going to need so many pounds per square inch or whatever, PSI, and so many gallons. And that's going to saturate the area. The enzymes are going to eat the trike, and everybody's going to be happy. So they do it, and they put dye in it to see if it's going to pop up out in the field or something. They put it under pressure. They stop. Within the next month, they're finding it in creeks for miles and miles around. What it did was it, with all its shale and limestone and everything and fissures, it just went straight out like that. So, which I think is kind of funny, and we can laugh about it, but it's not funny. But it was an enzyme. It really wasn't a big deal, right? But it also pushed out the trike. So we don't have any more trike. It's just disseminated over. Now, how much of this was a problem, right? There's a big difference between a tractor trailer load and a 5-gallon bucket, right? And it was probably just a little bit more than a 5-gallon bucket. But, you know, you don't want people hurt, and those guys know what they're doing, and they need a job and all that stuff. But if you follow the rules and you do all the things, and you have to have an environmental attorney represent you, I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. So, you know, the phase one isn't, the phase one already been done. It's 1,100 pages for this property. I didn't know that they made 3-ring binders 6 inches tall, but they do. And we've got one. So that was good. But, you know, that's all part of what the state requires you to do. That was already done for us. So that came along with the property. And our environmental engineer, I'm sorry, our environmental attorney has environmental engineers who work for her, and they've been great. We've hit a couple things. You're not supposed to dig in the dirt. You can put an addition on, but you have to monitor it. If you hit anything that smells like a Sharpie marker, you need to stop, which we did. They took samples, they sent it off, overnighted on a plane. Like, you know, it goes on and on. And you learn all this stuff, and everything was fine. They said, no, just keep going. You're fine. And, but they have to document everything. And if you document everything, then you're compliant, and we are compliant to a T. You know who I'm married to. And every tenant has to get a copy of this this plan, this environmental plan. And basically what it says is you're not going to make it worse. You're not going to dump stuff. And if you dig, you need to call and tell us. And then if you hit anything that smells or looks oily, you're going to stop, and you're going to let us inspect it. And we did. And we've been compliant, and it's been great. And it doesn't affect us at all because we're not the PRP.
Okay. So as long as you're compliant, the state law protects you.
Mm-hmm. And what that does for the state is we got 30 or 40 employees in there. So there's all kinds of tax revenue coming, employment tax, income tax. People are buying houses, people are buying new trucks. You know, it's really good for the economics of the whole thing, really.
My recollection is this state sort of liability protection or indemnification program was very new when you started.
I don't know. That may be. That may be. But it was new to us for sure. I don't know how old it was in 13 years ago, in 2013-ish. I don't know when it started, but every state's got one. Every state.
So to close on this property and then on our discussion overall, what do you want to, how do you want to sum up this property? Because again, I see patterns with you. I want to see what you see.
Wow. Well, that'll be interesting for to see what you observe of me because I can't see myself swing. It was a deal. We used when I was little, we would go to garage sales, and if it was a deal, you pick it up, you go, I don't know how much this is worth, but I know it's worth more than $1 is what I got on it. So you buy it, and it's the same thing with real estate. Um, I'm not looking too granular for deals. If I can buy this for less than uh painting it, and then it's a deal. Just buy it.
Yeah,
You'll figure.
got it. Okay. Yeah, and it was such a no-brainer. Like I've never ever heard of someone buying something for less than $2 a square foot. I've just never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yep,
that's what caught my attention. No, for me, the pattern with you, some of you you described hungry, a common sense approach to deals. Sometimes you're not analysis paralysis. Some people would have been me, for example, the paranoid lawyer, dot the I's, cross the T's type. I would have gotten all the environmental inspections and everything and figured out the cost, and it would never would have happened. Where you
right.
figured you did your homework, you did enough to protect yourself, but you figured, at $2 a square foot, as long as we cover the big bases, we're going to figure something out. It's going to be okay.
That's right. Yeah, we should be able to make more than that every year. Yeah, yeah.
No, and
And
I've
then,
noticed again. Go
well,
ahead.
then you can say, well, what if we don't fill it? How are we going to find tenants? I've always been good at making the phone ring. That's one thing I've been good at. Um, and I've been good at my thing, which is making the phone ring. And I've always had smart women, because my mother ran our business for 14 years or so, and then Cindy took over. Um, I've had good, smart women who were organized and made sure all our bills were paid, which so we have stellar credit and we can get whatever we want. I mean, I'm not going out and buying a Gulfstream or anything. I'm just buying good income property. I don't need a Gulfstream. I mean, it's a
So can people still do this today? Now, let's close with this. I mean, you've got the hunger, you know how to make a deal, you still do deals, you are creative. I want to, on a subsequent one, to go through the RV park because I thought some of what you did with that, both how you acquired it, how you improved it, I thought that was very creative. And there's always your artist touch. I mean, people just look at your background. You built this house years ago. If I remember right, a lot of it was from recycled parts, or perhaps all of it in the beginning, because you added the wing. But you've always had your signature on everything you do. For example, if people remember the background on the self storage, that front room, who does that to a self storage? Oh, Brad and Cindy. Okay, so that's always been a neat thing. But you have your touch on that. I want to get into that next time through on the RV park and any other deals you want to bring up. How do you want to close for people doing deals today, whatever age? But I would say, especially the young people who kind of have a mentality of, yeah, everything's been stolen from us and things are expensive and interest rates are high and we can't make money and it's unfair. What do you have to say to that?
well, all that woo bullshit with snowflakes. I'm not interested in even bothering wasting my time with that. Okay. But the people who are watching this should be interested a little bit in entrepreneurialism, buy income property. All that stuff is out there. We know the silver tsunami, the baby boom. Uh, we also know that within the next 4 years, we're going to lose 10 million baby boomers. So if you're jealous of the baby boomers, who's got all the baby boomers, they have everything. Well, they do because they fucking work, right? And you're not interested in working. The guys who are hungry to find deals go to the boomers who want to, and I point at me, I'm barely a boomer, 1964, but the people who are older than me, who are retiring, who have to retire. I just met a guy I've known for 40 years and his wife's got dementia. We got other friends with, it's like You read about these things, you don't realize it's ever going to happen to you. But those people have assets, whether it's strip malls or golf courses or storage or whatever the hell it is. Well, we're going to lose 10 million boomers in the next 4 years. They have stuff. You either buy it from them or you buy it from their kids. But this is stuff that's not maybe REIT grade stuff, a 40 or 50,000 square foot storage facility. That's good enough to be good enough. And there's a lot of them in that range. If it's 100,000, the REITs are going to fly in and meet you with suits and shake your hand and say, let's go to lunch. But this other stuff, there's 10 million new boomers going to die. That's where the opportunity is, I think.
Yeah, a lot of their kids don't want anything to do with it. They just want the cash at a discount.
Right.
What we're seeing, you mentioned Cody Sanchez, and what we're seeing in that space is the boomers are shutting businesses that are perfectly profitable down and not even selling them. And one of the things that we're seeing some hungry people do is go up and say, look, how about we buy your business? It's a functioning business. Maybe we can make it better. I mean, we've got AI instead of spreadsheets or, God forbid, legal pads, and it's functioning, and you were just going to shut it down. How about we work out a payment plan and you get something out of it and we pick it up? I'm seeing clients do that with both the real estate and the variants of real estate, the self-storage, whatever it is they own, which is pretty much everything, but also their businesses. So I'm with you. I think there's a ton of opportunity in what's happening demographically, and it's just going to get more funky in terms of too. I mean, you look at population growth, inflationary. You look at AI, deflationary. It's interesting times to live in. But I always ask people who whine about, oh, it's so bad. Really, what year prior to the year in which you were born would you rather have been born in? If the past was so great, which year would you like to have been born in prior to the year
Mhm.
you were born? And
Yeah.
anyone with a lick of sense would say, well, none. Well, there we are. There's so much there's so much opportunity. People manage to make money. You remember when you started in the 80s, interest rates were 21% on a single family home. People managed. People managed.
Yeah. There were opportunities. I went to a seminar one time and the joke was, you got to get rid of your house. It won't sell because interest rates were 21%. I'll give you $1 down and $1 a week for the rest of my life. That was the joke. I can't remember the guy's name, Wade or something like that. But that was the seminar. And I'm like, oh, this seller financing thing would be interesting. Just a couple of years ago, I bought a mobile home park that was way overpriced. Now, believe me, it's not the pride of the fleet, but it's 29 sites and 6.5 acres on a state highway in a university town. So what's the value of that land to scrape? It's worth a lot. So I called the guy up and I go, look, he says, you're never going to pay what I want. I said, look, let's go about this in a professional, polite manner. And what do you net? What is Bobby netting today? He said, I net about $1,500 a month. I said, great. I will give you $1,600 a month. I'll give you your price. I'll give you $1,600 a month. You don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to pay insurance. You don't have to get phone calls. You don't have to manage anything. He's in Florida. He says, I haven't been back in 8 years until it's paid off. He said, well, that would be illegal. I said, why is it illegal? Well, my CPA said, it's illegal. That would be no interest. I have to charge you interest. I said, okay, great. I didn't want to argue with him that of course, it's terms of the sale. I don't want to argue him because I don't want to piss him off. I said, tell me what you need. Well, he said, I have to charge you 2.1% interest. I said, that's fine. So that brings us out to 19 and a half years and it'll be paid off. And of course, we're bringing in over 100,000, barely scraping by. And so out there, you just have to make some phone calls and I send out 10,000 mail and all that. God, just to me, this just I've done it. I did 10,000 a week, but I've done hundreds a week and we were doing good closures. But I get all these postcards all the time. We want to buy your property. We want to buy your property. We want to buy it at, it even say on there, 11 cents on the dollar. Whatever it's a tax assessed, it will give you 11 cents. it's a joke. So everything just gets thrown away. Don't send out 10,000 mailers a week. Don't send out 10,000 mailers a year. Go knock on the doors, shake some hands, make some phone calls. Hey, I know you don't know me, but my wife and we live right around the corner and we'd like to buy your property.
Johnny, my son, as you well know, he
Yeah,
just started knocking on doors for a local investor in Charlotte this
there
week.
you
I'm gonna have
go.
him give you a call. He's talking. He talked to Bill Cook. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have him talk to you and a few other people about how do you knock on doors. So he's getting out there and doing it. We'll get you guys in touch. Brad, thanks for spending the time for showing us how you
Appreciate
go from New Jersey, which I think was your biggest disability. I think being on welfare and single mom, that was all secondary. But
it.
it made you hungry.
Yeah.
It made you hungry and you did something with it. And,
Yeah.
and thank you for sharing some of what you did with it. If I can, I think I'm going to get you on to talk about other deals because, like this, I forgot about this owner finance one, about some other deals on RV park, and maybe we'll have a little back and forth, some Q&A on a future call. You good with that?
Yeah. I'd do anything for
Cool.
you, John. You saved so much money over the years with uh, tax strategizing and structuring and protection. I should next wing we put on, I'm going to call it the higher wing.
As long as, and I know this will always be the case anyway, because you're such a nice guy, but for me, it's adequate recompense. The environment, the vibe on the hill, I relax. There's just, I'm not a woo guy, but the energy, it's just great energy. And it helps when you show up and there's an old fashioned, and Brad has won prizes for doing barbecue, and he knows I like the pulled pork and the brisket. And I know to bring, $20 bottles of wine that sold for 90, and he just delights in drinking the bargain. And if the wine's good, that's just sort of extra. And so the times we have had up there and just being able to chill and hang and talk life and the kids being involved and all, it's been great. I really appreciate being a part of that.
I
So,
appreciate
well,
it.
cool, Brad. Thanks for being on, and I'll let you get back to your self storage. I know you were going to open it today, and you delayed it a little bit for me. So I don't want to get on the Germans' bad side. You get out there and make her happy.
Exactly.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.